Thank you, and good evening, everyone. Right, I'm going to take you back 10 years, if you can remember that far back. For me, it was an exceedingly difficult time of my life. I was in the darkest point of an eating disorder, one called bulimia. And for those of you who don't know what bulimia is, it was, in my case, eating copious amounts of food and purging them all in an effort to control my weight. So a very disordered eating behaviour and mental health issue. And at that point 10 years ago, I was at the darkest point of my disorder. So I remember being at my kitchen table with empty packets of food and bags all over the place because I just indulged in a bulimic episode. And the emotional pressure, the emotional guilt and everything that came with that, and the physical exhaustion that came from repeating that cycle was at its worst at that point. When I was at what I felt was the darkest point of this, I did something. And I picked up the phone and I called the receptionist at my GP surgery and made an appointment with my doctor. Now, that one thing that I did has led to a cascade of events that has got me to where I am now, able to stand on this stage and talk to you about this disorder. Over the last few years, I've asked myself again and again and again, what was it that turned a seemingly very healthy, physically and mentally healthy individual into somebody who was far from? So physically, my body had begun to deteriorate, and mentally, I was in a very bad place. What took that individual into that place? And for years and years and years, I asked that question, and never did I find an answer. And now I can stand here and honestly say I don't believe the answer to that question was important. What I've also focused on over the years is what got me from that deepest, darkest point to the point where I picked up the phone and then made the recovery years down the line later. And the answer to that question, I believe, lies in 3 questions that I want to share with you this evening. Now, I'm hoping that nobody in this room suffers from an eating disorder. And whether you do or whether you know somebody who does, you will, all of you, suffer from, or not suffer from, but encounter challenges in your life where you feel desperate, where you feel that there is no hope and nothing can be done about the situation you're in. And that could be an illness of yourself or a loved one. That could be a redundancy from work. That could be an end to a relationship, a marriage breakup or something, and you could be feeling at the bottom of a pit at that time in your life. And I believe these 3 questions that I've learned through my experience can help anybody find a place of hope out of the challenge that they're facing. So what are these 3 questions? The first one is, where do you want to be? And I was focusing in the depths of my bulimia down here in the problem I had. So I was focusing and I knew everything about how I felt, how awful it was, how I felt about my body, about the behaviours I was indulging in. And it was only when I started to think about where I wanted to be did things start to change. I started to think about how I wanted to feel about my body, how I wanted to be with my family. And when I say be with them, I don't mean physically be with them. I mean emotionally invested in them. I wasn't there. I was thinking about how I could get my next selection of food to binge and purge on, about how I could hide the money I was spending to engage in this behaviour. I wasn't there mentally for anybody. I started to think about where I wanted to be. And the more clarity, the more colour, the more emotion you build about the place you want to be, the more your subconscious will start to guide you that way. Regardless of any conscious decisions you make, your subconscious will lead you there. So the first question, where do you want to be? The second question I then asked myself was, what one small step can I take that's going to lead me in the direction where I want to go? And when we think about, when we're in the depths of something really horrid, sometimes we want to jump to an answer to that question that gets us there in one fell swoop. But the action we need to take for that to happen can seem so enormous and so overwhelming that we back off it and we take no action at all. So the key is to think of a question that's so small you have the confidence to take it. And I phoned my GP surgery. That's all I did. I spoke to the receptionist. That didn't cure me of bulimia, but it took me one step closer. And she put me in contact with my doctor. That took me a step closer. He put me in contact with a specialist team. That took me a step closer. So just taking that one step is crucial to get you on the path to the place that you want to be. And finally, the third question, who supports you? Now, in that instance, at the start of my journey, it was the GP receptionist. So I can't say she cured me of bulimia, but without her, I wouldn't have had that appointment with the doctor. Without him, I wouldn't have had the appointment with the eating disorder team. I had help from my mum along the way. I had help with my now husband along the way, from close friends. Each person supported me at a different point along my journey. So those are my three questions. And I fundamentally feel with this third one and supporting, none of us are here on our own. We all have friends. We all have family. Even if in the darkest point you feel you can't talk to anybody, there are professional organisations out there, such as the Samaritans, who are there to listen. They will talk to you and they will support you on your way. So those are my three questions that I believe can help us in any challenge. And the title of my talk, you may be wondering about the 3 keys. I liken that time for me 10 years ago as sitting at the bottom of an exceedingly deep pit with a trapdoor over my head. That's how I felt at that moment, with 3 locks in it. And these 3 keys that I now carry around in my back pocket, individually representing those questions, unlocked those 3 locks that released the trapdoor. And what I wish for you all tonight, and tonight moving forward throughout the rest of your lives, because I'm 46 years old now, and I've never met anybody who doesn't encounter a significant challenge in their life of some description. So you all will. It's inevitable. Whatever challenges you face, I hope you always carry around your 3 keys with you that represent those 3 questions of where do you want to be, what one small step can you take that will lead you in that direction, and who will support you on the way to release that trapdoor and take you to a brighter place. Thank you.